Ready for a deep dive into something fun today? We're talking all about humor at work.
And it's more important than people think. There's this idea that humor is frivolous, but it can really make a difference.
Totally. And it's not just about, goofing off.
Mm.
We're going deep with this incredible book from the Indonesian Humor Institute, Humor at Work, Terja Jembira Usaha Berjaya.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of them. They're like the authority on humor in Indonesia.
Exactly. And even though the book is written in Indonesian, the insights are relevant for everyone. So don't worry, we've translated all the best bits for you. Like this one, get this, using humor in negotiations can actually lead to 18% more favorable outcomes.
Seriously, that's huge.
Right. I mean, it makes sense when you think about it. Humor kind of disarms people, puts them at ease.
Totally. Creates a more collaborative environment, right?
Exactly. And the book digs into this idea that not all humor is created equal. They talk about these 4 styles: affiliative, self-enhancing, aggressive, and self-defeating.
Ah, so it's about being strategic with your humor.
100%. I'm guessing aggressive humor, probably not the best way to win over your boss.
Uh-huh. Probably not. That's the one you want to avoid, for sure. All that sarcasm, putting others down, recipe for disaster.
So what's the best approach?
They call it affiliative humor. That's your sweet spot in the workplace. Think like lighthearted observations, relatable stories.
So instead of making fun of a coworker's mistake, you might tell a funny story about a time you messed up.
Now you're getting it.
Yeah.
It's about being relatable, creating that sense of camaraderie.
Makes total sense. What about self-enhancing humor? That sounds good for dealing with stress, which, let's be real, we all experience at work.
100%.
Yeah.
Like being able to laugh at yourself. Huge. Helps you stay positive, not take things personally.
Okay, so if I totally spill coffee on myself before a big presentation, instead of freaking out, I should just make a joke.
See, you get it. It's about reframing those awkward moments.
Then what about this self-defeating humor?
It's tricky. A little self-deprecation can be relatable, but if you're always putting yourself down, it can backfire at work. Makes you seem, I don't know, not so confident.
Right, better to be safe than sorry.
Okay.
Okay, so we've got our humor styles down, but how do we actually create a more humor-friendly workplace?
Well, get this. The book talks about this thing called the Human Resources Department.
Wait, really? I'm picturing a room full of clowns.
Haha, not quite. It's more a way of thinking about how humor works in a workplace. They break it down into 4 roles: the humor transmitter, the target, the keeper, and the audience.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Break it down for me. Who's the humor transmitter, the office jokester?
That's the one. They just have a knack for bringing the funny, whether it's a joke or just a contagious laugh.
Love it. What about the target? The
Yeah.
person they're always teasing.
It's more like they're in on the joke, they're game for a laugh, and that gives the humor transmitter permission to, be funny.
So it's more about having a good rapport than being the butt of the joke.
Exactly. Okay, now the keeper, they're like the guardian of good taste.
Making sure things don't go too far.
Right. They can sense when a joke might not land right or, might be offensive.
They're like the comedic referee, keeping things clean.
Huh.
And last but not least, the audience. That's everyone else.
Yep. And they're important because they ultimately decide if the humor is working or not.
Right. They give feedback, even if it's just by laughing or not.
It's all connected.
So cool. It's like building a culture of humor takes a village.
And speaking of amazing examples of workplace humor.
So before the break, we were talking about people who really get this whole humor thing right. And there's this one story from the book about an HR manager at Unilever. They were all about creating these, get this, fantastic programs and family support systems.
Oh, I love that. It sounds like they understood that a happy workplace is a productive workplace.
Exactly. And they used humor to get there.
Yeah.
What kinds of things do they actually do?
Well, they organize all these fun events, encourage people to be playful, They really wanted everyone to feel comfortable being themselves.
Creating that sense of community, right?
Yeah.
Where it's okay to let loose a little.
Exactly. And I think that's something any company can do, no matter what industry they're in. Make it part of your DNA,
It's like instead of trying to force humor into the workplace, you're creating the conditions where it can just naturally thrive.
100%.
This whole conversation is making me realize there's so much potential with humor that I never even thought about.
Oh, me too. And the best part is it's a skill. You can learn it.
Right.
Yeah.
Like anything else, practice makes perfect.
Yeah.
And speaking of practice, we should probably give a shout out to the Indonesian Humor Institute. Their book is seriously a goldmine of information.
For sure. They're doing some amazing work.
Okay, so say someone's listening to this,
Yeah.
right? And they're thinking, okay, this is great and all, but like, how do I actually do it? How do we bring more humor into our work lives?
Well, I think the book really emphasizes being intentional about it. It's not enough to just like hope for more laughter. You got to actively create it.
So be proactive. Don't wait for someone else to crack a joke. Be the one to do it.
Exactly. Start small. Maybe share a funny story during a meeting or put a funny GIF in an email. Little things can make a difference.
Totally. And don't be afraid to experiment. Not every joke is going to land, and that's okay. It's all part of the process, right?
Absolutely. And you know what else the book talks about? Just reading humor.
Oh, yeah. Like surrounding yourself with funny stuff.
Exactly. It gets your brain in that mode, like you start to see the humor in everyday situations more.
Makes sense. So swap that true crime podcast for a comedy special.
Now you're talking.
And who knows, maybe you'll discover you're actually a hilarious person.
There you go.
Absolutely.
Everyone has it in them. I really believe that.
I love that. Okay, we are on a roll, but we've got to take a quick break. We'll be back soon with the final part of our deep dive. Welcome back. I gotta say, this whole conversation about humor at work has really been a breath of fresh air.
I know, right? It's something people always take seriously, but it can make such a difference.
Seriously. I think that's what I love most about this book, Humor at Work, Kurja Gambhiro, Yusaha Berjaya. It's not just like, hey, laughter is good. They actually give you a framework for bringing more humor into your work.
Totally. Like
Yeah.
that whole concept of the humor resources department. So good.
Right. I mean, it sounds kind of silly at first, but it makes you realize that everyone has a role to play in creating a more humorous work environment.
And that it's not just about being naturally funny, it's about being intentional.
Yes, 100%. Like, okay, we talked about all the benefits of humor, breaking down barriers, reducing stress, boosting creativity. But what about the potential downsides? Is there ever a time when humor is just, like, not appropriate at work?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you always have to be mindful of the context. What one person finds hilarious, another person might find offensive. So reading the room is crucial.
For sure. Like, maybe avoid any jokes that are at someone else's expense.
Exactly. Punching down is never cool. Stick to humor that's inclusive and lighthearted. And remember, humor is not a substitute for, like, actually dealing with problems.
Right. It's not about sweeping things under the rug. It's about creating a more open and positive environment where, those tough conversations can happen.
Exactly. Humor can be a powerful tool, but it's not a magic wand. It's about finding that balance.
Totally. Okay, so I think the key takeaway here is to be intentional, be respectful, and don't be afraid to experiment a little.
I love that. Even if you don't think you're a funny person, you can still find ways to bring a little more laughter into your work life.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
And who knows, you might just surprise yourself. Maybe you're a comedian in the making.
There you go. That's the spirit.
Well, I think that about wraps up our deep dive into the fascinating world of humor at work.
It's been a blast.
Totally. And hey, if you're listening to this and you have any funny work stories, we want to hear them. Share them with us on social media.
Yes. Let's spread the laughter.
Absolutely. Until next time, keep those smiles up and remember, a little humor goes a long way.